you couldn't have picked a better time to graduate. Your timing is impeccable, flawless, perfect. If we ever needed people to complete their degrees, this is the moment. Many fires are raging. Every 8 or 9 days on the island of Guam, 2 people decide that life is not worth living, and they commit suicide. Think about that. During our watch, and they tend to be younger, and for some reason, mostly males, and their weapon of choice is a rope. They hang themselves. Catch this. Of all the graduates in all of our schools in the island of Guam, 14% only are reading at grade level. If you take a look at our situation in terms of the island and the region, we were promised to be protected, and increasingly we become conscious of the fact that we are a target, and a big one. If you take a look at our crime rate, and those that are homeless, and those that are dependent upon drugs, we are in deep yogurt. And so your graduation at this time is so timely and so needed. You couldn't have picked a better time to join the ranks of professionals as educated professionals. And just remember this, professions exist to solve problems. And we've got a lot of problems in our region and in our islands. So welcome, because the fires are raging and it's your turn to hold the hose. I love the fact that about a third of your graduates are first-generation students. You know, you and I have a lot in common. We have more than 1 degree. And your president was a first-generation student. What does it mean to be a first-generation student? It means that you are the first in your family to graduate from college. Indeed, I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. And what does that mean? That the core mission of the University of Guam and of all of our colleges and schools in the region of Micronesia, one of our greatest, most significant challenges is to graduate students that could not say what our valedictorian have said. Haley, you talked about your parents and they stood up proudly. And you talked about your siblings. And you talked about the people in your family. And as a result of that, she was able to excel, and we proudly salute you for your achievements. But you have people in your corner. What we've got to figure out is, how do we graduate people who do not have that wonderful support system that a lot of you have had in this particular event. This event is really a celebration of the many people who stood behind you, who cheer you on, who help you with your expenses, and who were able to help you with your homework. And I have to tell you that for those of us that didn't have that, it is still possible, provided that when we hire educators, instructors, faculty members, staff, counselor, we make sure that you have the cultural competencies to do what is necessary to boost our people so that they not only are recruited, not only are they educated, they're able to graduate like you're doing right now. And so welcome to the club. Look at me for a moment, please. My father was black. My mama, white. They got together and look what they did. I am racially blended. Half of me has the value of a flag. That's my mama's side. And the other, according to the culture, a handkerchief. They both are made of the same cloth, but one we utilize to wipe dirt from our faces, and the other one we salute. And one of the greatest challenges that we have in our educational system is to help our students to understand that God doesn't make handkerchiefs. We're all flags. And if we're good enough for God, we must be good enough for Guam. We must teach our children to understand their history and their social studies and their geography and their technology and their English and their language studies and how to protect and give continuity to the Chamorro language. But we must also teach them how to reject rejection. God does not make junk. So to some degree, we have to figure out how we can decide what is called in the agenda of the university the DEI goal, respecting our diversity, eliminating the issue of inequality, creating equality opportunities, and inclusion. I came to Guam a long time ago, but before I came to teach at this university and to work in the CNMI, I had to go through a particular set of challenges that you should be aware of. One is that I came from poverty, grew up on welfare. My father was broken at the knees. He was a police officer, killed in the line of duty. And grandma died of tuberculosis. And consequently, being black and being poor, and then the insurance money that he got from the police, having lost his life in the line of duty, was stolen by one of my uncles who went to another island. And by the way, I noticed that some of you are working on your cell phones. And you know how much they're paying me for this event today? With your respect. Listen up. We are going to send more first-generation students to our universities to be educated and graduated. And unless you learn how some of us made it in spite of the system, not because of it, you will not be able to raise your children who are intelligent but unskilled, who may not have the support of a home with families who graduated from college, who have the social capital to give to their children. Unless we learn to do that, we will not be able to succeed, Because increasingly what happens is the more successful you are in the economy, the fewer children you tend to have. And what does that mean? That means that if I'm successful in the economy and I could have children to send to Catholic school or the Seventh-day Adventist Academy or Harvest or some other place of prestige, if I don't have those resources, not because I wouldn't want that for my children, but I can't afford it, we have to figure out how to make our schools work for everyone. How do we educate the students that do not have the social capital at home so that they can succeed in school? I have buried 6 brothers. If you can't be good about being good, you'll be good about being bad, because all of us got to be good about something. And because my father was not there, and my mother came out of poverty, and they got together and had children, but couldn't afford to give us what we needed to prepare, to be competitive, to read, to grow our vocabulary, to increase our intelligence, we were basically often failed for not knowing what we had not been taught. So I have buried my brothers, given away to strangers, abused when I was 8 years of age, racially mixed, incompetent at the middle class level. I couldn't speak Spanish at the middle class level. And I couldn't speak English at the middle class level. I was illiterate in 2 languages at the level that was required for me to succeed in school. And as a result of that, I experienced failure. And my parents couldn't take care of us, and they divorced. I was a product of a bad divorce. What's a good divorce? When parents agree that they cannot make it together as a couple, but they don't divorce their children. Don't divorce your children. Lucky for me, my brothers were tall, and they were awesome in the streets. And there were gangs in the street, and they loved the ability to excel in the street. I was small, short, knock-kneed, little fat little boy. The gangs didn't want me. And my mom would go to church and needed a chaperone, and so I went with her to church, and I began to listen to what these preachers were saying, and I was so amazed at the way preachers did things that I thought one day I could be a preacher. Amen? So but I found out that you needed to be educated. And I couldn't, so I decided to join the United States Air Force. Now, be cool, be cool. They didn't want me. I took a test. And in those days, you didn't even need to have a high school diploma. And I flunked the test. And so I went to work in a Christian hospital in Hinsdale, Illinois. And there, by the way, because I had been, given away as a gopher, the way that I pay my room and board was to work for somebody who needed a little boy to do errands. And so I did what nobody else wanted to do in that office, in that home. And so what happens to me is that I get very good at volunteering, because if I was in your home and you are a child in that home and you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it, but you're still a child in that home. So I would always volunteer to do what nobody else wanted to do. And so when I went to work in this hospital, I was a high school dropout then. I had nice scars on my body. I went to work, and this Christian woman was my supervisor. And she looked at me, and she loved my ethics, because I was always volunteering to do what nobody else wanted to do. She just loved the way that I did that. And she took me aside one day and said, Sam, how come you didn't graduate from high school? Oh, don't worry, Miss Yamasaki. I got it all figured out. I flunked the test to become an air police officer in the Air Force, but I'm going to take it again, and I'm going to have it made, and I'm going to see the world, and I'm going to serve my country, and I'm going to buy a 1956 Ford Victoria. And she looked at me, and she says, Sam, you're not joining anything. You are not joining anything until you graduate from high school and you graduate from college. And so it came to pass that she got my attention, and then she said something that was horrible. She says, but you're not going to do well in school. So I said, what's up with that? Like what it is. I had to graduate from where? High school and what? College, but you're not going to do well in school. So you know what I said? Like what it is. How could you say that? Am I stupid? And she says, no, you're not stupid. You just don't have the words that are in the textbooks. You don't have words that are going to be in the lectures. You don't have the words that will enable you to graduate. Not because you're stupid, but because you come from a book poor home. So in order for you to graduate, you're going to have to increase your vocabulary in order to do so. And so my journey began. And I said, she says, what your parents could not give you, you're going to have to get from reading, and from reading. And every time you see a word you don't understand in your reading, stop in the name of love. That's a stop sign. That's a red light. Don't continue. Stop. You're going to crash intellectually. And so I began to read. I began to look at books. And I asked Ms. Yamasaki, what should I read? She said, read memoirs about people that had it tougher than you and bounced back and managed to excel. And so I began to read books about people that had it tougher than me. And I began to build my vocabulary. Teach your children that when you grow your vocabulary, you increase your intelligence. And so it came to pass that I began to do that. And soon I graduated from high school. And then I went and graduated from college. And then during the Vietnam War, I was drafted. But there were riots in the United States, race riots. And because of the way that God made me, because remember, God doesn't make mistakes, I was able to have legitimacy in the black community. And I had legitimacy in the Hispanic community. And I studied with white kids from different backgrounds. And as a result of that, I was invited to help solve urgent problems, and they canceled my call to Vietnam. And as a result of that, I helped to bring peace in the city of Chicago. And as a result of that, Harvard University sent a delegation to Chicago to talk to some of us who were interested in doing graduate work at Harvard, and that's how I was recruited. But listen carefully. I earned my master's degree and my doctorate, but not alone, and this is very important. If you're going to succeed, you must become conscious that if you do not have parents, if you do not have a Nino, if you don't have people in your corner that can help you, you still must become, even if you don't have a Mary Yamasaki on your corner. Think about the fact that in these universities we have programs, success programs, that will help you decide to become the best advocate for your success in school. And so I was able to do that. And I was able to study. And I was able to graduate. And then I met a professor. And listen carefully. Listen carefully. You're about to enter the world of work. And those of you with your master's degree, you're going to increase your responsibilities. Seek a mentor. Seek somebody who is older and more experienced and wiser and generous, who will take an interest in your capacity to continue to build your talents so that you can serve more effectively in helping to solve problems. Professions exist to solve problems. And at this particular moment in time, you have graduated with additional skills and competencies to solve problems. So don't stop learning. Read for healing. If you have gone through a horrible divorce, if you were touched inappropriately, if you have experiencing abandonment, if you have experienced bullying, if you have experienced addiction, for God's sake, read memoirs of people who had it worse than you, managed to bounce back, and managed to excel and to make it. And in that spirit, I challenge you to look upon this moment as a wonderful moment by which you can redefine your destiny. Continue to study, continue to collaborate, and above all else, remember, you may not know what the future holds, but you can get to know who holds the future. And if you do that, you will graduate, you will excel, and you will continue to give your loved ones bragging rights. See if you could graduate one more time. But above all else, help someone who needs you. And together, you will be able to excel and make our island safer, freer, stronger than when we found her. God bless all of you.